Mabuhay, Lazami. My name is Veronica, host of this podcast, Everything's Political, broadcasting here at Radyo Kapwa on CKUT 90.3 FM, and I'm joined here by
Mathilde.
Yes, you know it, second Wednesday of the month, it's me talking to you. There's so many things that I want to say, but it's all kind of jumbled in my head. This past few weeks has been tough for us Filipino communities, but also just generally speaking, people who are advocates for mental health or those who are experiencing mental health issues. It's been a moment for a lot of us. So for those who's not aware, during the Lapu Day on the
26th of April.
26th of April, a celebration that is meant to highlight our culture, our heritage, our pride as Filipino. It's kind of tarnished, I would say. Lapu is the leader of one would say a chieftain, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
A leader from the Visayas region who led his group to defeat Ferdinand Magellan when, he so-called discovered the islands of the Philippines. He took advantage of the kindness of our ancestors and he met his demise in the islands in the Visayas region, actually. So this year was supposed to be the second year. This year was the second year celebration organized by Filipino BC, who is also our kapwa all the way from the West Coast. And last year was actually a success. Even though it was raining, the music continues. The stage was still on fire. Everyone is still rapping, singing, dancing. Stalls are there. And it was just a success, even though the weather was nah, but
Such a success that they wanted to recreate it this year with all the support of the community.
Yeah, and unfortunately for us here in the East Coast, it was a Sunday morning when we all woke up with the news of that tragedy. Before I move forward, I just wanted to honor the lives of the people who were lost in this tragedy. May their memory live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved them. Jennifer Darbele, 50 years old. Kira Janapol Salim, 34 years old. Vicky Nason, 55. Glitza Daniela Samper, 30. Glitza Maria Caicedo Samper, 60. Daniel Samper Toro, 65. Jandel Sico, 27. Richard Le, 47. Katie Le, 5. Lin Huang, 30. Nerissa Pagkanlungan, 46. So there are 11 people in total who lost their lives in this tragedy, and there are over, I would say, 30. It's very hard to find
it's up in the air. We don't
the right
exactly
number for those who are surviving and still in the ICU. Some of them to this day fighting for their life. I would say it's been almost 2 weeks now when this recording goes on air. But it's been a while for us, and it feels like we've been trying to extinguish the fire.
Keep your head above water.
So all across Canada, I would say that we're having this revelation that mental health crisis, we really need to put it in the forefront, because this does not just affect the Filipino community, it affects Canadian community in general. And I remember I was speaking to one of the journalists, Diamond Yao, from the Rover, and I was explaining that Vancouver, it's not lost upon us that Vancouver doesn't have the resources because of the public healthcare crisis that they have already been facing way before this, with homelessness and what led to people being homeless, and people who are, needed help because they are dependent on drug use, and we end up criminalizing these people, right? So I think we really are in this intersection of how would we treat this type of incidents. Would we treat that person, the accused, as a criminal? Or would we try and provide healthcare for them? Like, comme il mérite, like he has the same rights as everyone else in here. Obviously, his actions are definitely unforgivable. I am not excusing his action at all. I think he needs to be held accountable. But up to what point can we hold him accountable for his actions? I think I'm in this position where I'm angry at the same time. I want everyone to, like, we need to see it in numerous perspective, I would say. And I think I'm just very horrified of how a lot of people are advocating for him to just be jailed, and some people were like death penalty, and South Kapwa, we're all about mental health and well-being. So how do we honor our Kapwa whose lives were lost, but also honor this Kapwa who were the perpetrator of these actions? What do you think?
I keep thinking back to the image of throwing a rock into a lake and how the ripples reach out way far from the original point of impact. And that's what's currently happening in the community, because both the victims and the perpetrator are part of the same community. One that in a lot of aspects would be possibly more isolated from the rest of Canadians, in the sense that the Filipino community is very tight-knit and everyone knows everyone, especially in a city as small as Vancouver, I feel. And what does justice look like for the victims? What do they want to happen? Or is it the voice of literally everyone else, like all the way to the East Coast or in the middle of Canada, where we're potentially not as affected because we don't necessarily know these people personally? Whose voice stands out the most, and what kind of justice will actually be healing for these people?
Yeah. All this time when the tragedy, we still didn't have a concrete answers to it. France has been in numerous phone calls trying to provide space. We are also trying to honor Filipino BC in terms of communicating with media. It's more of just like trying to have a united front to talk to the public and to the media.
Which means there has to be a united idea of what justice means, what healing path needs to be taken.
Right. And France was interviewed Daybreak by Sean Henry. And Sean Henry was actually asking France. France is the executive director of San Kapwa, licensed mental health counselor as well. And, he asked France, like, what needs to be done and how do we make sure that people who needed our resources or needed help, like we catch them, right? And first thing that she said was various entry points. And I think that's really where Sant Kapwa's activity comes into play, I would say. We say we have like monthly kaatehan, but essentially it's drop-ins.
It's tambayan.
It's tambayan. It's drop-ins. It's to make sure that people who needs community has a stable time where they can be with the community and to voice out their feelings. I think at this point we're all about trying to take care of our inner self, and if that inner self doesn't have a proper cleansing, then that emotion just gets bolted in until you can no longer keep that feelings in, and that manifests physically. And unfortunately for our community, we're not really good at talking about our feelings. And it's also not as easy as saying go to therapy and talk about your feelings. I've had several of my friends who would literally just stare at their therapist, and therapists would be like, are we just going to look at one another? And they straight up said yes, because it's just very hard for us to
put things into words.
Yeah, and not only that, but we speak several languages, right? So it's not as if you have a master of this language where you can also express yourself. So entry points like kaartehan is where you get to talk to your peers, maybe talk to an ate, like a big sister, or like a tita, or, like an auntie. And the multi-generational way that we have our programming really is, in a sense, designed to try and catch people like the accused to, hey, what's happening? Because you don't look like you've been eating well. Like, when was the last time you took shower? And like, it's this little things. It's really the little things that really fit into the narrative of taking care of yourself and your well-being and your mental health. When you take care of your well-being, you're taking care of your mental health. But if there's no one else in there who's kind of like checking in with you, then it's a bit hard to catch this people. And what happens is that they both it in until they couldn't take it anymore, and then it manifests physically, and in this case very violently.
I was talking to a friend about what followed this event, and specifically how people talked about the mental health of the perpetrator. And she highlighted something interesting, which is that all of the, like, let's say, pro well-being or like mental health positive, let's say like social trend that we've been seeing in the past few years, in hindsight really, really feels hollow and empty. Because where's the understanding here? Where's the rush to care for people when you actually see the consequences of not just someone who's depressed in the very stereotypical sense, or potentially suicidal in the very stereotypical movie type feel that we have for it, but someone who is potentially homicidal as well. That's all on a spectrum, and if there's no space for all of it, then there's no space for any of it.
Yeah, and already, without even taking into context our cultural background, like just here in Jojiage, Mohayal, we do know that our governments, depending on which level, but all of them, don't have the resources to be there for our community. We've heard stories. Let's say Matthew Sheffield's at NDG. I remember when I participated in the demonstration. Sometimes even the people around them don't really know what to do, and your first instinct is to call 911, right? And that means that police officers, they have so much already as their like a responsibility for themselves that they may not be properly trained to deal with mental health crisis. I think we've only been seeing it now that the growing number and concerns of police needs to be trained to be able to receive this type of phone calls of mental health crisis, people having psychotic breakdown,
and them prioritizing people's well-beings and safety rather than a, let's say, like judicial heavy hand of the law.
Yeah, like, grabbing your gun or that taser to try to subdue you. I mean, we talked about earlier as well how the Constab Special at the STM, right, like because of the homelessness that we've been experiencing here in Montreal, the Constab Special have, I would say, some sort of partnership with social workers.
A social worker team. I think they're not a lot. They're maybe like 5 or 6 people.
Yes.
They work 9 to 5. And basically, if there is a sense that like someone is loitering in the metro and potentially having issues with substance abuse or severe mental illness, those social workers may be dispatched to intervene and basically offer resources. But I mean, maybe I'm just a little jaded and cynical about initiatives like this, because those resources that are being offered to these people are already like plein à craquer. There's no space for more people. We are in Villeray, and there was recently a shelter that opened near us. The latest news was that it's fully booked every single day, and that some people feel unsafe going there because the people who are regulars there can be quite violent.
Yeah. You know, and so we're once again in this intersection of trying to take care and help these people out, but at the same time, you know, if they're violent, we need to be able to safeguard the people who tries to help them. Let's say the social workers as well. And this is why a lot of people would say, this is why we call it the police, because the police are, in a sense, physically can provide security, right? That's what they're trained for. But the reality, like in theory, it works, but in practice, it's much more complicated than that. And we're kind of like an impasse at this point, because it's half-half, I would say. A lot of people are calling on to more police presence.
Funding.
I mean, we've already had so much historic police funding increase all across the cities in Canada, and yet we have much more homelessness, les itinérants, and mental health crisis just growing as well. So it seems like more funding, but there's still more crisis as well. So
because police are not trained to deal with these situations, they simply aren't. And I think that just wanting to train these people, that's number one, very expensive. Number two, not very possible, because it demands a actual shift in mindset from these people, of police officers needing to act in a way that aims to safeguard people rather than just book them, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for our dear listeners, I know it's a heavy conversations in the mood in the middle of Wednesday, for this middle of the week, this Wednesday. So let's get some break and let's hear for our dear sponsors. And we're back again. You just heard from our dear sponsors here at CKUT 90.3 FM. This is Everything's Political, hosted by me, Veronica, and I'm here with
Mathilde.
Yes, and we were just actually debriefing a bit. I mean, probably this is one of the first time that we've been debriefing, and we chose to do it recording.
I feel like we've had many conversations on that topic even before this happened.
It's true.
Mostly because last year, I think, there was a similar incident that happened in Laval. I'm sure some of our listeners will remember. A bus driver for the STL, the Service de Transport de Laval, crashed his bus with passengers on it into a daycare. And there were many killed that day. And it turns out that this man was in a state of psychosis. And it was really, really bad. And some of his close relatives had noticed that things were happening. Some of his coworkers even testified about how his entire mood really shifted before that incident, and it was noticeable. The thing is, if you ask Monsieur, Madame, tout le monde to describe what psychosis means, I don't think they're gonna have a very good answer. I think the word psycho will be thrown around quite deliberately. And that's the thing. Even with such a recent happening as the incident in Laval, I think the conversations are still not up to par in terms of how do we actually identify people who possibly have had a break with reality or who are headed towards that and need more support. How do you identify these people, and what do you do? Do you just tell them to go to therapy? No, that's not how this happens. And I'm sure that a lot of people can think of some of their coworkers maybe, or a sibling, a neighbor, who you definitely noticed a shift in their mood at some point and you were worried, but you never ever could think that it could get as bad as a homicide or potentially suicide. The thing is...
But like, what do you even do, right?
We are not privy to people's inner world. All we can do is work from what people tell us, not just from what you see. And so I think that a really good avenue for starting to have these conversations is creating a culture where people can actually talk to each other
and feel
about
safe
these things
and not feel judged.
Mm-hmm. And mind you, that doesn't mean that everyone needs to all of a sudden be a licensed mental health counselor like friends.
I mean, we would love to.
Not everyone is made for it. I truly think it's a calling. Maybe friends would disagree.
No, France has a gift. France, do you have a gift? I know she would reject that idea, but France has a gift.
But at the same time, you know the people that you meet every day. You know your coworkers. You know how they usually are. And if they start to become quite reclusive, you would notice it. I'm not saying that you need to like put on the hero's cape and be like, hey, I noticed that you're not as friendly anymore.
Yeah.
Be so direct. Definitely, depending on the culture of the person, it's going to take some adapting because confrontation is not something that everyone is used to. Sharing your concerns can possibly be just something, offering a listening ear. And it's okay to respect your own limits in the sense that you don't have the knowledge required to diagnose someone, to potentially assess a risk, be it for domestic violence or substance abuse. We all work from very stereotypical ideas of what that looks like in an everyday person. And like I said, it's all in their inner world, and you have to sort of build a bridge to get across, and so that that person will trust you.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also a good way to talk about different, like, styles, I guess, as a therapist, right? And this is excluding our immigration background and how these factors are very important. You mentioned earlier that, get like a therapist for that, but not everyone can be a therapist, or like
not everyone can afford a therapist.
That's true. So that's where I want to talk about. I think I'm pretty sure I've already said it on air several times already, but I was privileged enough to be able to access and pay for a private therapy when I had my own crisis. I was actually on wait list and it was taking a lot of time, and the social worker who was following up with me ended up going on mat leave as well. I mean, to fault of no one, of course. They deserve that and they have the right for that. But at some point, there was not really someone who was following up with me. If I don't call them, they're just so débordés. Like, they just have so much people that they're taking care of that, like, if I don't actively seek help, then they probably will not be able to call me.
And mind you, if you're already in a crisis, you definitely don't have the energy and just a way of putting effort towards actually getting yourself the help. It needs to go both ways, which really suck. But as we know, the state of mental health care in Canada is just dismal. There's no other word for it. I
mean, let's just talk about healthcare in general. Our healthcare system is hanging by the thread. And it's no surprise that we're having a lot of all this crisis, because not only that there, let's say, quote unquote, regular healthcare system we have is basically not working. How much more mental health, which is more taboo, not just again for the Filipino community, but beyond. And we don't have enough carers, and we don't have enough specialized carers as well to be able to properly assess and guide and follow up and look after people who really need this type of services. So as a Filipino, there are several factors as to people just end up having crises as well. So I can just use the example, my own example, so that because I didn't ask for anyone's consent except my own. But factors like me being an immigrant, me being a queer person, these are something that psychologists or therapists here in the West, in Canada, may not necessarily have the right resources to navigate the family separation, the immigration policies, waiting 10 years, waiting 12 years, to the anxiety of not having a regularized status, the depression that comes from sacrificing everything and then it did not work because the policy that you were counting on to use to become PR no longer there, right? It's just so much anxiety and stress that is like boiling over in their inner self, in their loob, that sometimes, yay, you're able to sponsor your children, but there's been so much time has passed already, and you're trying to, let's say,
rebuild a relationship.
Yeah, rebuild that relationship, and it's not working because, those are the times that you cannot actually like go back to. How do I say this? It's just, all I know is let's go back to the Lapu tragedy. The accused has had his brother, murdered or allegedly murdered the year before. His mother...
Wait, reword that, because it sounded like he set up a hit on his brother.
No.
His brother was murdered the year before.
Yes. And so already, as someone like, my God, someone killed my sibling, like, that's already something that you
it
need
rocks your world. You don't feel safe anymore.
Yeah, to navigate that. And then your mom, you're seeing that your mom is having a hard time navigating and grieving and anger and apparently attempted self-harm, suicide, right? And again, you're seeing that and you don't know how to feel about all of that. Like, those feelings have just been boiling over your feelings, and out of the blue, there you go, you snapped and you don't know what happened, and then people are just staring at you down and they want to kill you, right? Because that was like the clip that I've seen. He looked lost, and everyone is just like looking at him like, I'm going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which, mind you, perfectly reasonable reaction.
Oh, for sure. 100%. Yeah. Yes. So again, policies that this, workers, temporary foreign workers, visitors, students, these are policies that they don't have any power over, with that 100% affects them. And so these are added stress, these are added anxiety, these are added depression. And I would say that therapists who are trained in here, they may not necessarily have the skills to navigate this. And also going to an office, sitting down in this sofa that looks comfortable, with a neutral, nice painting in front of you or behind you. For some people it works.
Yeah, but then you sit down and all of a sudden your new therapist comes at you with a bunch of microaggressions about your cultural background, your sexuality, your gender expression.
Tell me, Veronica, why is it that you left home
Why is it that your relationship with your mother is damaged after coming out?
And for someone who didn't have that much financial resources, I paid like $150 for an hour.
You're like, here, take my money, please fix me.
Yeah, and you are in such a desperate moment already. And all you did for that 1 hour is just like, yeah, so I'm a lesbian. My mom didn't really like accept it, or like was having hard time accepting that identity of me, and I really didn't feel comfortable staying at home at this point, because it just feels like I'm living a lie.
And mind you, that's just like personal lore. You're still like a way away from actually getting to the nitty-gritty of the reason you actually needed a therapist.
Yes,
it's a lot of exposition.
And it's an accumulation. Essentially, it's an accumulation of a lot of things that lead you to having a crisis. So I would just say, actually, I can talk about the factors that I can just think of on the spot that I could use as an example of my experiences, but we will hear that right after the short break once again. And we're back again. Thank you for our dear sponsors. This is Everything's Political, broadcasting here at Radyo Kapwa on CKUT 90.3 FM. My name is Veronica, and I'm joined by
Mathilde.
And before we went on the break, I was just saying how, things, I move out, still in school, you're working part-time, rent is due, you're hungry, and COVID is about to like reach Canada. All of this accumulation is beyond your control. And then out of the blue, that's it. Your brain just can no longer juggle all of these stressors that it's threatening your sanity, right? And you just, that's it. It just snaps into you, and yeah.
That's the situation a lot of people found themselves in during COVID, I think. On a lighter side, I remember people talking about their lowest moment during the pandemic. And this guy said that he watched the entirety of Shrek on the screen that came with his LG fridge. And, like we all hit a different kind of low,
Yeah.
What I wanted to talk about is
prevention.
It sounds so cheesy, but prevention is the best medicine. In crisis management, we often say that you need to be prepared for the crisis to actually go against it. And so how do you ensure that people have not just the vocabulary, the resources, the wherewithal, and the support to overcome a crisis? Because it's not about avoiding the crisis, it's about weathering it. Life has its ups and downs, and it will happen. You will hit a low, and you just need to know where you can turn, and how to put words on what you're feeling so that you, again, don't have to overcome all of these barriers for care. Something as simple as having insurance. Not everyone can have that, really. And even looking at my own insurance, it's kind of laughable. I don't think therapy is in the cards for me right now. And hopefully, if ever I were to hit a crisis, I could take care of that.
I know, ironically, because you work in a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just, the cracks that now I really want to shed light on is that it could happen to anyone. Now more than ever, inflation, where would you get your next meal? Have you been properly eating well? Everyone around you seems to be vacationing, but you cannot afford that. That's bound to play something in your psyche. And
did you miss a rent payment? Did you miss a hydro payment?
And yeah, it's increasing because the rent here in Montreal has, like, in historically increased 4%.
And in some places in the province, we're talking about a 67% increase in just the last year. I'm looking at you, Trois-Rivières.
And so it's for someone who's already living paycheck to paycheck, and upon hearing that, that's added stress.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have resources to be able to properly gérer ton stress, manage your stress, and you start to isolate yourself, then this is the ticking time bomb that I keep on talking about, and hence why the various entry points that Francis said were, if we can just see you regularly, even if it's just like every month, like 1 month, then we can kind of see how you're doing and we can intervene. Like there were moments in our members where they kind of just vanished, right? And we just sent a message to me like, hey,
you good?
Like, no, like, you don't owe us an explanation, but seems like you haven't been going to our events. You okay? Everything's good. And then that's when they're like, yeah, I'm having a low right now. Like I have bipolar, and so I just don't want to see people right now. So yeah, and we're like, cool, but you let us know, right? Like, and they're like, yeah, I'll text you.
The door is open. Coming back to prevention, when we're talking about the rise in cost of living and how people's economic status is becoming a lot more precarious, we need to talk about how basic needs being met is suicide prevention, is crime prevention, is making sure that children grow up in a loving, stable home.
Yeah. And it's so cheesy, making sure that children grows in a loving, stable home. But the reality
Call
is
us
that
filthy communists. Go ahead.
The reality is that as an immigrant, what is a stable, loving home if my mom has been working as an OFW for 5 years now, and every time I FaceTime her, she would say, it's coming soon, like it's almost there, you already did your biometrics or you already did your medical exam. But me as someone who works in immigration and processing this file, it's taking so much time, to the point where sometimes their passport has expired and they needed to renew it, and sometimes passports are valid 5 years, right? And it needed to be renewed. And sometimes I feel surprised because I see the picture of the child who's now grown up, and so much time has already ça a été coulé, right? And you can never go back to that. So again, you're talking about prevention, making sure that they have a loving home, loving parents. But if the parents are too busy working 2 jobs and then hustling, trying to send money back home and also trying to find other ways to gain more income because the rent increased, and that this society do not accept or recognize their degree in accounting, then it's just so frustrating, right?
Maybe on a more personal note, we were talking about crises, and I'm getting off my antidepressant soon. And the reason for that is truly because my life has stabilized so much. I have a home, I have food, I have friends, I have family. That does wonders for your mental health, guys. It's so helpful to have a stable life and to eat 3 meals a day and to get enough sleep. And that's truly what having your basic needs means.
Yep.
You're not wondering where you're going to sleep tonight. You're not wondering how you're going to eat. You're not wondering if your life is going to spiral out of control.
And these are the combination of several factors, right? As humans, we're meant to be living in community, and I think I could say that you live with community. And you have a stable job right now, which I would say
I worked so hard for.
That covers our day needs. Our rent is not exponential because of policies that was put in place as well. So these are factors that that I would say arrived to the point where now we are stable.
We can save, we can take care of our friends, we can treat each other.
Yeah, we can go here and there, have a cafe outside or have a brunch here and there.
And that's going to sound like privilege when it really should be basic.
Yeah, people are saying that, oh yeah, when I visit Montreal, it's like everyone's just chilling and such. Like we just wanted to take time for ourselves instead of always giving our time for the capitalist society and work. Like le joie de vivre, there's a reason why we like to just chill, go to a park and like have an agency over our own time.
That's the French part of Montreal, you could say.
Well, yes, I think that other people who visit outside Quebec, outside Montreal, says the same thing.
And mind you, with the rise of cost of living, gentrification, out of control landlords, all of that is being eroded in Montreal, which was truly considered the last bastion of affordable housing in Canada.
And some people would say artist dream, because everyone is an artist in their own way. Let's deviate away from the traditional artist of, let's say, painting, a writer. Like, there's so many ways of being an artist, and I think at the end of the day, it's just having an outlet. And a creative outlet. Once you found what type of outlet you can do for what you're feeling, then you can use that mean to not keep your feelings in and use that outlet. It could be music, it could be rapping, it could be singing.
You don't have to talk about your feelings. You can write about it, you can sing about it, you can paint about it, you can do whatever.
And which is why I'm proud to say that, Sant Kapwa's whole spiel is about art, movement, and conversation. And right now we're having a conversation, a very painful conversation, to really highlight the importance of our mental health. That it's a common bassin, right? Like, if the society's mental health is going downwards, that is an indicator of how this country takes care of their people. And if we're having a ticking time bomb of people having a mental health crisis, let this be a wake-up call.
We need to reckon with the fact that governments have failed Canadians time and time again and left people hanging out in the cold. And this is a direct consequence of this. Don't mistake it for anything else.
Once again, the Lapu Day tragedy goes beyond the Filipino community. It is as Canadians as you and me. This is Veronica for Everything's Political, podcasting here at Radyo Kapwa on CKUT 90.3 FM. I am joined by
Mathilde.
And we thank you for listening to us, and we really hope to bridge and have this conversation more and more, and to not make it a taboo. Mental health is important. Mental health saves lives, and let's check in and take care of each other. Bye.
Bye.
Ok, welcome back. Bienvenue à tous. Vous écoutez à Radio Kapwa 90.3 FM CKUT. Je suis Fanny Christo et nous sommes le 14 mai 2025. Il y a une semaine, on a fait un épisode spécial parce que habituellement on enregistre Radio Kapwa en avance, mais cette fois on l'a fait en direct dans le studio de CKUT pour la collection de fonds. Donc je veux vous dire merci à tous les donateurs. Alright, ensuite, il est temps pour l'actualité. Si vous ne connaissez pas, ça fait election week in the Philippines, and the results that everyone is talking about involves the Dutertes. And to be specific, Jairo Bolledo wrote on the Rappler website as of May 13 that the Dutertes emerged big winners in Davao City. 5 members of the Duterte family were proclaimed winners by the Board of Canvassers in their respective races in Davao City on Tuesday, May 13. After suffering hours of delay, the canvassers finally proclaimed former President Rodrigo Duterte, who was detained in The Hague, as mayor. This is his 8th victory in the mayoral race, but he will not be able to serve this time around since he is under the International Criminal Court's custody. Instead, his son, Vice Mayor-elect Sebastian Duterte, will likely be the acting mayor in his absence. Incumbent Davao City 1st District Representative Paulo Duterte has secured his 3rd and last term. Meanwhile, Paulo's sons have also been elected. Omar Vincent Duterte was elected as 2nd District Representative, while his younger brother, Rodrigo II, topped the council race in the 1st District. Now, if you'd like to know more about the story, visit the Rappler website where reporter Jairo Bolledo recaps the proclamation and discusses the effect of the Duterte's landslide victory in a streaming video. The link to this video and article can be found within this episode's descriptions on YouTube or the CKUT website, or you can search for it on the Rappler website. Ok, c'est tout pour l'actualité, et je pense on doit écouter des publicités, but don't go away. We'll be back very shortly with some community announcements, alright? Alright, this is Fenny Cristo, and you're listening to Radio Kapwa on 90.3 FM CKUT. We are approaching the end of our show, unfortunately, but before we sign out, we like to talk about what you can do and where you can go in our lovely city, Montreal. Also, the last 3 days or so, il a fait beau, donc je vous recommande, don't stay inside. Go out because summer is coming soon and it's the best time to experience everything MTL has to offer. Okay, so grab something to write with and write on, or open your calendar app and on y va. D'abord, demain, le 15 mai at 1:30, the Femme de Mont à Côte-des-Neiges is hosting their feminist book club. I believe it's already started and it's a weekly thing, but all the same, I just want to let y'all know about it in case there's still some available seats. They'll be reading Beloved by Toni Morrison, and these workshops will be an opportunity to discuss the participants' impressions. Books are provided in French and English, or you can find the exact details on their Instagram at Femme de Mont Cdn. Next up, that very same day, tomorrow, Thursday, but later in the evening at 6 p.m., you can go to Shift Concordia for Santa Kapwa's monthly Kaartahan by the Ka Collective. You know what, I'll probably be there, so say what's up if you heard about it on our show. Anyway, it is a special Kaartahan in light of the recent events in Vancouver, as we'll be treating the space as a landing pad for the community, a healing space, if you will. Ugnaina.doctor will provide free body work, and Deanne will have a poetry/journaling space. Also, there will be an altar as well as some art supplies to play around with. Please come at your own time, and if you didn't know, we take care of each other. Okay, fast forward 2 days, and on the 17th of May, that's a Saturday, at 7 p.m. at Zamboangenya Bella Cucina, which is at 6900 Dikari Boulevard, FCAAQ MTL is presenting Fun for Funds, a night of music, community, and culture. Come through for a night of good vibes and meaningful support. All proceeds will go towards Cultura Montreal, a big festival that is being planned for this summer. Anyway, I'll be DJing that night actually, as Fenny Mixo and our very own Radio Kapwa audio engineers Laura and Kyla will be performing with their band, The Earth Tones. Also, Beautiful Sabotage will be rocking the stage. Not to mention, there will be some games and prizes and a special menu, and we'll also be standing in solidarity with those affected by the events in Vancouver. So, a donation box with QR codes will be available to support verified relief efforts. Tickets start at $25 with higher tiers to purchase. Find out more on Instagram at fcaaq.mtl. And that's it for the announcements. Hopefully, I'll see some of y'all at Carton tomorrow and or Saturday at the Fun for Fun show. This has been Fenny Cristo, and once again, you are listening to Radio Kapwa on 90.3 FM CKUT. You can listen to us every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m., so check us out again next week, alright? Alright, c'est tout. Peace out.